Hello there, Quicksilver Slash here with another replay-esque video for you today. I was asked by a viewer specifically for help and comments on how they could play better in their Tier 7 USDD, the Mayhan. And unfortunately I don't have a Mayhan and I don't really have the money to buy one right now. I may have just over 7 million credits, but I'm saving that up so that when the German line comes out I can jump through it quickly using free XP to get some videos out and get my overall impressions on the line when I get access to it. So instead I'm going to be using my Sims. Now as you can see I have a lot of experience in my Sims. I used it for this entire season of Ranked and I've played it a ton throughout my time in World of Warships, using it to retrain my captain every single time I moved him forward. Now speaking of captain, this is the captain that I have in my Fletcher. As you can see, pretty much maxed out on the skill points until I get over 9 million more experience. And this is how I have him set up. So I have basics of survivability and basic fire training to help with the rate of fire and the AA. I have torpedo armament expertise to have that quicker torpedo reload. Last stand, because in a destroyer you really can't afford to be stuck sitting around, particularly in a gunboat when you're going to be actively engaging other ships. Your engines are going to get knocked out, your rudder's going to get knocked out, and you can't afford that the second it happens to use that repair, because then you might get lit on fire or flooding or have it happen again. So you have to be able to get out of the fight before you use that repair. I then personally use High Alert just for that quicker damage control party consumable. From the majority of people, would recommend Superintendent, extra smoke charge, and any other consumables you're using. I think that in the majority of situations is better. The reason I use this is partly how I play the ship, but also from ranked play. I found I wasn't going through for smoke a game. You're coordinating with the other DDs on your team to provide those smoke boundaries for your battleships. And with the length of game and the typical engagements, I've never really found myself using more than 3, whereas having just that little quicker damage control could save your life in some situations. At Tier 4 I have Survivability Expert for that bonus HP, and this gets better and better the higher tier you go, because it's 400 hit points per tier. But once again, in a gunboat, it really keeps you in the game longer, particularly important in Ranked. In random public battles, I would probably actually recommend Demolition Expert if you're playing more passively standoff, particularly at higher tiers where you can blind fire. I think Demolition Expert is the better skill there, but once again, this is the captain and the ship I used for ranked play. And then at Tier 5, no-brainer, Concealment Expert. You can't run anything but this. I don't even think there is an option. Some people may have a different opinion, but every one of my DDs has Concealment Expert across the board. Now, as for modules, I run Premium Damage Control Party and Premium Smoke Generators. Should be no surprises there. The cost per battle for me isn't major because I run a premium account, and if I have to run a couple extra battles and some premium ships to make sure I have credits, it's well worth the cost to me. And then I use Defensive Fire. Now, since I'm going to be going into a public battle here and not ranked play, I'm actually going to switch that out for Speed Boost. Now the reason I had Defensive Fire in ranked play, and I think it was so important, was particularly at high tiers, aircraft carriers spend as much time just trying to harass the destroyers and keep them spotted as they do actively attacking you, particularly Saipans. And if you came across a Saipan with those bombers, they would wreck you. So having that Defensive Fire to trigger and at least wreck their aim dispersion a little bit was pretty big. And you could keep them from keeping your fighters on you by just forcing them to either lose planes or run away. And then for the upgrades, pretty straightforward. Main armament 1, keep all your turrets and your torpedoes in it. I have aiming system mod 1, a little better accuracy, damage control 1, and then rudder shift for more butt wiggles. So while this is a premium ship, it's very comparable to the Mayhan. It's got some advantages and disadvantages. One of the advantages is it's got better concealment. With Concealment Expert, I've got it down to 6.6, which is, unless you're coming across Japanese destroyer in ranked play, was just not a thing, so I had the best concealment on the map often. But where it loses out is it's missing potentially one turret right here, and then the Mayhan has 3 torpedo tubes, 1 center line, and then 2 waist tubes, so she could put torps off on both sides. That wasn't useful in all situations, but it still is a pretty useful feature. The Mayhan allows you to split some ships, go up channels, and get damage out when you're in a situation that you can't get out of. One other important thing to note is I do use the slower, longer range torpedoes. For me, it's as much as these do more damage and are quicker, having to get within 5.5 kilometers to have a chance at throwing torpedoes isn't worth it, and I don't use the torpedoes in American destroyers as much as an offensive weapon as I do kind of a defensive one. I'll fire them behind me, forcing ships to maneuver. So as I was saying, I use the 9.2 kilometer torpedoes as a defensive weapon, force things that are trying to chase me to break off, but also just break up enemy fleets. You can fire them around a corner and you're not going to get big damage out of them, and it is something that really sucks in the Sims and the Americans in general, is just that 8,500 damage out of a torpedo is not much, considering you get hit by some of those equal tiered Russian ones in a DD, you're basically dead. But you can force them to turn into the torpedoes and use that to put enemy battleships broadside onto your own. So it's not always necessarily about putting damage out, but enabling it. So rather than commentate a replay post-game, I'm going to jump right into a battle now and just try to let my mental process flow as I'm thinking and how I'm reading the map to better let you guys into my head, and hopefully it can give you some insight into what I think is important out of destroyer gameplay, particularly the Americans. So let's go. Alright, so I've now loaded into a game, and the first thing and most important thing to be doing is be at your computer for this point. Right now you've got almost a minute once you've loaded in, sitting in this pregame to start assessing the situation. So right away, not super stoked. Tier 9 game. I'm a Tier 7 destroyer, which means I'm not going to be the aggressor. It's not really my role. I will try to take caps, but a lot of my role in this game is going to be kind of the more passive stuff, trying to protect my battleships, particularly the Izumo, because they're a big part of your guns. So normally around 15 seconds I start actually looking at the map after I've got a good hold, and I'm pretty comfortable with this map, and I'm trying to make the decision where I want to go. So I look behind me, you've got the Nagato over there, Colorado, and Izumo's over on the right. So I'm probably going to head off to the right here to play a forward screen for my battleship. And this is the way we did it in real life, is your roles, the destroyer's roles and frigate's roles, they're point defense vessels. They sit out in front of your high value target and protect them. And that's what the destroyer and cruiser's roles are in World of Warships for your battleships and CV, is you're those first line of defense to make sure, you know, kind of assault ships, a destroyer can't sneak up, get 7k away, and torp your battleship or sneak in behind your carrier. So you don't necessarily have to be playing attack to have an important role. Just by being in front of your battleship and doing the spotting, using your own detection to alert yourself to what's going on, can be very helpful. Now, on Warrior's Path specifically, I like going for caps B and C, and the reason for them is they're a little closer together. A is fairly far off on its own, and it can be hard to actively kind of defend both caps, whereas B and C, using these islands in E and F, you can actually work back and forth and protect each cap fairly effectively. So I saw Shores was spotted there. We have this enemy Benson. I don't have a line on him. If I do get a line, I will put fire in, because I could get a lucky shell in, light him on fire, or detonate, who knows. Unfortunately, they're all on the other side of land, and you can see they're pushing into B hard, so that's not really a place I would want to be right now. Particularly at my tier, I'm going to be throwing myself away if I walk into that situation. So we have an enemy Shores, that's all that's been spotted over here, but you can see they've got at least a battleship and a couple cruisers also coming over this way. So this is probably going to be a fairly large engagement spot. And unfortunately that Hipper just got spotted going south. Had he not gotten spotted, I would probably have just fired my torps straight at this edge of land. And you know what? I'm still going to do it, because you never know, and in the minute it takes me to reload, I'm not going to see something that I'm going to need my torpedoes for. Like, I know where all their destroyers are, so they're not going to come screaming around a corner. I know where most of their ships are in general. The Shores isn't coming at me. So just having torps out at the edge of land could prove valuable, and sometimes you just got to luck chuck. You're not potentially getting any damage by sitting and doing nothing, so you might as well put them in the water, hope for the best, and continue on. So I'm a little leery about getting too close to the Shores, because he could have radar or hydroacoustic, and I would be at his detection range right now with that radar, which isn't too bad. I believe it's 9.49 if I'm not mistaken. So it'd be pretty quick for me to escape, but got this Hipper again, put the torps in the water, and just by being here and continuing to put torps out, I am messing with their ability to approach and try to take this cap. So you see in chat, I let the Azumo know I'm going to put smoke down. And this is a really good use of your smoke in a destroyer. And you see it all the time ranked. This is how ranked battles were fought. It was really about putting on a strain, protecting your battleships. You know, now he's not spotted. He's got a huge swath of smoke to sit in there, and he can fire out, and I'm going to get back on the aggressive side of the smoke and provide spotting on this Iowa and this Hipper, and really potentially mess up their plans here. Now I have to be very careful here, because that Hipper is right on the edge of my detectability. He was at 6.8. I risked getting detected, and that would have been disastrous for me. But look at the Azumo. He's not detected. He's able to sit there, put out tons of fire. He's got all the spotting in the world because I'm no longer in my screen. And hopefully he can put some big shells into this Iowa. And that would be what's ideal in this situation. I'm not going to fire just because of the proximity of that Hipper. Once the Hipper's backed off a little bit, I probably will engage with my guns just to try to get a fire in. And I've just let him know that he's got about 15 seconds until that smoke's gone. Because the last thing you want is a situation where your battleship is sitting still and lit up. And the way I'm doing that is I'm just tracking my time here. I know when it ends, I know how long it's active for, and you can see 121 seconds with 161 reloads. So when it gets to about 40 seconds left, the smoke is gone. So I give a bit of an advance and you can see it dissipating there. And that's how I time those things. I've been asked a number of times in game, like, how do you know when your smoke's about to run up? Well, the information's all there. You know, your first puff went out a little before, in this case, 27 seconds before the final one. And it looks like I'm about to get some lucky torps into that Nagato. Ah, and he gets killed. Dang. That would have been some nice damage, and I haven't really done any damage yet. But I've been effective in helping my team control this. I've provided cover. And I'm actually going to turn in and get aggressive and lay another screen. And it's right about here, 5 kilometers. I'm going to switch to AP. These American guns can really start to put some reliable damage in to cruisers at about this range. Now you'll notice I'm just locking on. I'm not even paying attention to my firing. I'm all about maneuver right now. My guns will keep on him. He's not moving fast. I'm going to put the damage in. And we finish him off with that hipper dead. I can now use my damage control, put those fires out because I know I'm safe, and get back into this battle. So looking at the map, this Iowa's a big threat, but he's fairly far off. I actually want to get this Nagato or hipper next. Scratch that, I'm going for this other Nagato because he looks like he might be going right up a straight. So I'm going to pop my speed boost and head straight for him, try to get some close damage. Now the important thing is I only have 8 torps, 8,500. I can do about 64,000 damage if all my torpedoes hit. And I can't guarantee that I get all that because his torpedo protection is going to remove a lot of that damage. So I have to be ready for the possibility that he walks away from a full torpedo strike right here. I'm watching his gunfire. I've seen him fire at least once. His guns aren't looking at me just yet, but they're going to be. And this is where speed and staying close is a big part of it. I get the torps in the water. Come on, big damage. And there's what I was talking about. I didn't get the kill. 8 torpedoes, and that wasn't enough to kill him. And that's kind of one of the crippling factors of these destroyers. So I used the land to stop me, and we just won. We controlled 2 of the caps for most of the game, and I got that kill. So overall, first game of the day, walked away with 322,000, 5,000 experience, did 60,000 damage, only put 36,000, and you saw I held my fire most of the game. And the reason I did that was my role was more concealing my battleships, assisting them. It's a shame there isn't some sort of experience modifier, kind of like tanks with the spotting mechanic, where if you're spotting for someone else, you get part of their experience. I would love to see ships introduce something where if someone is firing from within your smoke screen as a destroyer, you get some bonus damage because it inspires that teamwork. Destroyers' smoke screens aren't really about covering themselves. They can be, you know, if you have to run away and ditch. But as you saw there, I used 2 of my smoke screens for that friendly Azumo, and I kept him safe most of the game. And that's what the kind of play you have to do in ranked particularly, and it works very well in random battles as well. One of the kind of frustrating things in ranked driving a destroyer so much is a lot of games you won't get a lot of damage in, and you won't necessarily get to keep that star in a loss because you spend the game protecting your battleships. But as much as it may seem like, oh, I should just go put the damage in, I'll get more experience that way and more guaranteed, by keeping your battleships concealed and safe and spotting for them, you're making far more use of your hit points than aimlessly throwing shells at enemies. And you can see on the team score, despite not doing too much the whole battle, really just protecting my battleship, because I got those torpedoes in at the end, I solo capped and did get some good damage into that hipper. I was second on our team. I'm quite pleased with that result. And that gives you an idea of what the kind of damage that armor piercing can do. I fired 20 shells at the hipper, did 10,000 damage. My first volley was HE and I lit him on fire, and that burned for some more. And look how little, 8 torpedoes, only 45,000 damage to that Nagato. So particularly in American destroyers, as much as they might seem like stealth assassin ships, if you're using the longer range ones, doing suicide runs on a battleship isn't necessarily a good idea. I was pretty confident that I could attack him without losing my ship and get all my torpedoes in, but even beforehand I went in knowing that odds are it was maybe 50-50 whether or not all 8 could kill him. And after all the repairs and the premium consumables I use, I walked away with 250,000. Had I not had a premium account, I still would have walked away with 166. So maybe there's a bit more of a grind, but I really feel premium consumables, your premium damage control, smoke, and engine boosts, they're all worth it. It allows me to use the skill points on something other than superintendent and be more effective as I like to play. So I hope this game can serve as a teaching point and allow some of you to see how I play my destroyers and how I've been incredibly effective in a tier 7 destroyer. This was basically the only ship I drove in ranked play this season, and I made it to 1. And I'm very comfortable with my destroyer play. So maybe you can take something from this. Everyone plays their DDs a little differently. I've got other videos up where my battles are much more about the gunfire and staying out of detection and just putting in that withering fire and starting fires. And this one turned out to be a little bit different. It was more about that passive gameplay and just guaranteeing the win. And in doing so, I still got opportunities to put good damage in. So just because you don't go out hunting for damage doesn't mean you're not going to get it. Anyways, I'm going to try to get another video for you guys later that's more standard format. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thumbs up if you like it. It helps me out. And share with your friends. I'm trying to grow this channel and every subscriber helps. Thank you very much, and until next time.